We got a intro and rocking and rolling.
You are making the world a better place by listening to the Joy of Living podcast. This is your guide to achieving a more purposeful, powerful, and positive life. Join Barry Shore in unlocking the best version of you and becoming happier, healthier, and wealthier. And now, here's your ambassador of joy, Barry Shore.
Good, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people around the world. Now, how can I make the categorical statement that everybody who is watching or listening is good-looking? Because by definition, if you tuned into the Joy of Living in this particular webinar called Divorce with Integrity, and you're always looking for and finding the good. We found good because we have amazing people, and we're going to be discussing some of the most intimate, touching aspects of life, which has to do with coming together, going apart, and coming together again. So it's really interesting that and we're going to, by the way, we're going to make a new intro for Divorce with Integrity as opposed to my regular, The Joy of Living. Of course, it's all about that. But on this particular show, which we're doing our second one, but we've had so many people responding, first of all, to the title, Divorce with Integrity, because to a lot of people who have been through the process, it's an oxymoron. In other words, a contradiction in terms. The reason this particular webinar exists and these remarkable beings that are here, wonderful Lori McDermott, amazing Esty Starr, Rand Starr, and Joe Applebaum, is because we're here to talk about the reality that it can happen, and it will happen because you're emerging as your best self. It's literally the chrysalis coming out. You were in a place where there was pain, coming through that pain and coming into a greater space where you can now be the best you possible. When you're the best you, then you make the world a better place for yourself and all the people that you touch, i.e., the people you were at one time, not the people, the person you were married to, and the progeny that you may have, or not even. Because it was a slip of the tongue, but I think it's true. We talked about it last time. When one marries, you don't just marry an individual, you marry a family, because every individual has many parts to that being. So there are people that were in your life for whatever period of time in a very deep way that now don't want to necessarily separate from you as well. Maybe they even like you. Maybe you like them. I mean, we're talking about relationships. And that, as a short introduction, I wrote this down because I want people to understand fully that what we're dealing with here is the reality of stress in life. The most common aspect of the human condition is stress. I mean, it was maybe exponentially growing during the pandemic and the lockdown, but stress is a part of everyday life. And there are only three stressors in life: money, too much or too little, relationships, marriage and such like that, and health. Health issues figure into how people come together. And if there is a relationship that is at one and the same time fraught with possibility beyond understanding in terms of goodness, and also fraught with possibility of creating more stress in one's life, which, by the way, can be mitigated and even used for advantage, then it's marriage. What more interesting phenomenon in life for two people who may or may not have ever known each other to come together into a situation where they are, excuse the old expression, plighting their troth, which nobody ever knew what it meant, and therefore we couldn't understand it. But plighting your troth means that you are literally giving yourself over to another person physically, mentally, and spiritually. That is not just a big commitment, that is a life shift. And as I've mentioned many times on my particular podcast and wherever I go, shift is a wonderful word, but most people drop the F and they end up with the other stuff. So you got to be very careful about your F and Fs. Shift happens in marriage by definition. The question is, what happens now with the stressors that go along with it? And I say, it's money, it's relationship, the human relationship, and it's health, mental, physical health. And they're all exacerbated in a marriage situation. So we're going to discuss today, if we can get to them, several different things. I have literally 238 questions that were sent in over the past few weeks by people. And again, I got to applaud wonderful Lori and Esty and Joe for making the time to do this, because everybody has a life. And what they're doing now is sharing their energy, their perspective, their love to help many other people. And there's no greater calling than that, because so we can all be out doing other things. But we recognize this is important to a lot of people because we've all been through stuff, right? And we want to help shift perspective even a little bit and really tell people there is such a thing as divorce with integrity. Just as there was marriage with integrity, we hope, there can be divorce with integrity. So let me start off by saying, of the hundreds of questions that we have, many of them, of course, are duplicates. So I'm going to give a question and try and put it in my words. And we're going to begin with something that I find very interesting because of the backgrounds of most of the people, the four people in this particular webinar. And that has to do with religion. And I have, I think, 72 questions just about religion. And then no particular religion, by the way. But the question comes down to something like this. When we got married, whether it was church, synagogue, Muslim place, on the beach, in the most hippie way possible, but it was all done under the auspices of this sort of religious understanding. And then over the years, one of the people in the relationship didn't want to be in that religious environment anymore. And that caused a big rift. How do we deal with one of the spouses who was committed deeply, body and soul, and now is no longer, and literally, as many of the questions says, needs to leave? What do we do? How do you have divorce with integrity when to one of the spouses, the other one doesn't look like he or she is acting with integrity? So I know it's a little bit of a long question, but I hope the three of us understand it, four of us understand it, came in from dozens and dozens and dozens of people. How do you deal in integrity in a religious context where one of the partners no longer wants to be in that religious environment and still wants to, let's say, maintain relationship with the children and or other people? So I'm going to throw this hardball right to our first batter who can hit it out of the park, and that is wonderful Esty.
Yeah,
please announce yourself again by your name and who you are a little bit, and then we'll just, if you'd be so kind, let's just jump right into the question, okay?
Sure. So, hi, Esty Starr. And part of how we landed here is that when Barry and I had a conversation, I told him just a few months ago that I think my chief accomplishment of the last 2 years has been doing my divorce with integrity. So that's been what I've been doing most of the last 2 years. But what I really do all day is help business owners earn more money with less headache, run a multinational consultancy and business school for micro businesses. I have 5 kids and I love to dance and meditate. So yeah, some kind of, weird balance of work, family, life. That's me in a very small nutshell, which I really don't fit into. Such a fun question. I definitely personally relate to this as I spent over 20 years super ultra orthodox, about as far fundamentalist as you can go. There's like a couple inches more that I didn't go. Never shaved my head. Those are really just customs and nuances. There isn't really any farther that I could have gone into religion. I didn't only live it, I breathed it, I taught it, I believed in it with every fiber of my being. And then shift happened. and my transition is largely ideological. I'm not going to pretend there's no emotional components. I'm not going to pretend that, but it's largely ideological. And I was really scared when I was getting divorced. It was when Netflix was coming out with all their specials about the Jewish community and the women who lost their children because they became irreligious. And all of my friends, both Jewish and not Jewish, were like, Esty, be careful. Don't you tell anyone that you're thinking of leaving the fold. You're going to lose your kids. You're going to lose your community. You're going to lose everything. And I could not be in integrity and pretend. I couldn't do it. It was just like, I remember I had my hair covered with a wig for over 15 years. And towards the end, I was like, I couldn't put it on. It like my whole body, like, I was like, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it. I don't believe it. And that's a much longer conversation for a totally different show, but I can't do it. I couldn't. It like physically pained me. I spoke to rabbis I was close with. Like I went through the process, and I got to this place where for me to be in integrity with myself, I could not pretend to be anyone other than myself. And it was really hard. It was hard for my kids. And I give my ex-husband so much credit, so much credit for how we were able to work things out. And for me, the foundation is just respect. I've never been disrespectful. I've never gone into a place of faith immodestly dressed to be like in your face. It's just not who I am. I've kept the standards that my children are used to religiously for them in the home, meaning I might dress a certain way or not have my hair covered with a wig anymore. My house is fully kosher according to the standards of my previous marriage, which are
high.
They're very high. They're higher than the average kosher. It's not, that's like, it's like super duper kosher. It's more
right. It's not kosher style.
No. It's super kosher with all the extra things. And I think, to me, when we talk about divorce with integrity, being with myself in integrity also allowed me to be with others in integrity and to say, listen, I'm not trying to be in anyone's face. I'm not. And I also can't pretend that I'm someone that I'm not. And I'm not going to be disrespectful to the lifestyle that I brought my children up in. I trained them in this. I'm going to be like, no, what? Change my mind. Yeah, that'll really do well for them. And so the thing that I would say worked for me, and that I would tell others to attempt in this situation, is just be respectful to yourself and everyone else. Right?
Thank you so much. We're gonna go back over these. You made some very amazing points. Joe, would you be kind enough to again introduce yourself to the audience, your bona fides, as it were, in business and in life, and then let's discuss this remarkable question.
Thank you, Barry, and thank you, Esty, for sharing that. I know it took a lot for you to share that. I'm Joe Applebaum. I run a marketing agency called Ajax Union. We help companies grow, and I also teach people and sales teams how to leverage LinkedIn to get more clients. I'm a single father of 5, live in Brooklyn, New York. When people get married under the religious understanding, it's not just about religion. It's also about, like, what are your values? What is your awareness level? What is your personal development interest in general? A lot of people, when they grow apart. That's why, you start off, you're on the same page, you have the same values, you have the same insight, you have the same awareness. And part of religion is just one part of your life, but there's a lot of things that change. There's health. For me, I lost 95 pounds. My personality became a little bit different as a result of me going through personal development. So when you shift, when you have those shifts, it affects everything. It affects your values. It affects religion. It affects spirituality. It affects a lot of things. And many people use religion as a weapon to win, or as an excuse to create a war, or to be right, often called self-righteous. Like, one person being religious doesn't make you better than another person, or being not religious doesn't make you better. There was once a woman that went to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and she went for a blessing, and she asked for a blessing that her kid should be healthy. And he gave her a blessing that her kid should be from, like that they should be like religious. And she's like, I'm not a religious person. Why are you giving me that blessing? And the Rebbe said, who said that I'm any more religious than you? Who decides what religious is? So the idea of someone judging somebody else that they're more religious or less religious, religion is something that I believe has to do with your values. And as long as you're able to come with your partner, if you have kids together, and decide on shared values of how you're going to bring up your kids, what the person does individually, whether they want to cover their hair post-divorce or don't want to cover their hair post-divorce, whether they want to keep the same things that they kept 15 years ago or 20 years ago whenever they got married, the personal choices that somebody makes is a personal choice. How you bring up your kids together, that's what really makes the difference. And in terms of values and having a similar message, the key is to agree. And that's why we have agreements in life. And if you can agree to bringing up your kids and having a very similar message, it's very, very powerful. Me and my ex, we agree that we're going to bring up our kids a certain way. And that's in an agreement. That's something that we negotiate and we speak about. What are we going to do? What schools are we going to send them to? What messages are we going to send them to have? And at a certain age, each child decides on their own what they want to do. That's a decision that each individual needs to make on their own. And throughout life, that changes. But it doesn't change the fact that you want to be a good parent to your kids. And that has nothing to do with religion. Being a good parent to your kids, being a good partner has nothing to do with religion. A lot of people kind of mix that up. And they say that if you're not at a certain standard of religion, that makes you a bad human being. And the fact that somebody can judge somebody else has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with judgment. We can only judge ourselves, and us judging other people of whether they're religious enough or whether they're not religious enough. You don't know what trauma somebody went through in their marriage or in their life that makes them have certain shifts and changes that they need to make. And often you'll see people that look very religious, but they don't behave according to the values of religion. And there are certain people that don't look religious at all, and they behave with tremendous amount of integrity and tremendous amount of what people would look like as a religious, pious person. So religion and being pious doesn't always match up. And ultimately, it's about creating a partnership where you can have your children, if you have children, grow up in a meaningful way. Because often we feel darkness and we feel like we're buried. But if we shift our perception and realize that we actually were planted, then the shift that happens can be used as fertilizer to grow an orchard.
Mm-hmm. I like that use of shift in the as the planting thing. Wonderful, Lori. Would you be kind enough to tell people again who you are, what you do, and about the question?
My name is Lori McDermott. I am a mother of 3 children. I am married. I almost got divorced. So I'm on that spectrum, and I run a website called thewifeexpert.com. And I help people who want to stay married or who want to get divorced, and I walk on a journey with them. So I am considered a coach, and I have this cat who won't leave me alone. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. So when in this topic about marriage and religion, that's a very strong subject because we grow up with religion, and when we're born and in our family, that's our heritage. So people hold that like a firm wall. And then you meet someone and they share that with you. And then you start this journey together and someone goes, shift. I'm not like, and I think, it's just a different perception. And I am a person who believes there is one God. And we all have, some people are Protestant, some people are Jewish, some people are Catholic, some people are, the Mormons, whatever, Hare Krishnas. Everyone kind of believes that there is something else. And if you find the commonality, I have friends of all religions because I don't care what they believe in. I only care how we unite as friends and as, business partners or whatever we do together. And I think that's what people forget. Because when you're married to somebody and he suddenly shifts into, I don't believe in God at all. Or, in Esti's case, she just wants to do her own thing. And the other partner's left going, well, not only are you leaving me, but you're shifting in some way that I don't understand and I can't control. And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to control. And if we all remember the only person you can control on this planet is yourself, and what you give out is your gift. There's no controlling. I mean, you can control your kids as they're growing up. Oh, we're going to do this religion. And then when they get to be 15, they go, yeah, you know, Mom, I don't think. And you go, oh, okay, calm down. Just keep stating what you believe. Because if you sit in a place where you believe something so strongly, the people around you will go, oh, I want that. I want to be a part of that. But if it shifts and the person that you were part of doesn't join in that realm of your religion, you have to accept that. But don't lose who you are and what you believe in. Just continue to shine.
Woo! Well, I can tell you, we're touching a lot of lives, kids, with real in-depth stuff. I want to go back to some of the words that you use, wonderful Esty and Joe and Lori, because some of them are almost the same, and it's wonderful in the perspective. First of all, I would like to say on a very personal level, I'm married 45 years, and it's not possible in 45 years of being together with a unique being, my wife in this case, and myself, two unique beings, that there weren't times that we had more close and farther and shifting as waves, because that's life. But everybody recognizes as you become more adult that growth is really what moves the human condition. And we really want to grow into our real being. I'm going to use Joe as an example because he used the word that Esther used also. One of them is people are telling Esther, well, you're going to lose your kids. You're going to lose this. You're going to lose. You used lose a number of times. And it's not the bone in the back of the body. That's a biblical reference. Inside baseball. LOSC, you're going to lose something. As opposed to people saying, wow, that's great. You're going to win. You got something. Because when this shift happens, that's what people say. I want to go to Joe particularly because he mentioned something about his physical being that I think helped shift his spiritual being. And that was the shedding of 95 pounds. Now, on one level, I can't even imagine it. You hear me, Joe? In other words, I see you today.
Yeah,
I don't know how much you weigh, but I'm looking at about 157, 160, something like that. How much do you weigh today?
I'm in that range.
Okay. So it's a much better place physically, mentally, spiritually than having an additional 95 pounds. There was the shedding of the pounds was, how should we say it? Conducive to his enabling the wing spread and the growth. I don't know if it's true, but I can tell you that mentally, physically, and spiritually, when people make a determination to shed pounds, I don't call it losing weight. It's again the wrong kind of word. It's the shedding of the pounds because you really want to find you. And that's what the three of us talking about. Lori's saying also, one of the interesting dilemmas of religion is that the word control does figure into it. I mean, I think you'd agree, Esty, right? And Joe. And Barry, certainly, and probably everybody out there listening, shaking their head. And
Yeah.
Part of religion is a control aspect. And one of the things that we're all talking about is not so much lack of control, but on the contrary, self-control. There is control.
Some people think it's control. Some people think it's connection. I think it's a balance between control and connection.
Very good. Outstanding. And that, by the way, that connection, again, with self, personal development, and the ability to grow in the marriage. I want to say something else that you mentioned, Joe, and I'm going to say this. I don't know how true it is, but now that you and your wife are literally not together in the same physical domain, but you're talking about what's good for the kids, what's cool, what things like that. You may even be talking more today than you did while you were physically married.
Define talking.
Even just
however
talking.
you define talking, communication is clear
Yes.
when you have an agreement. When you're
Yes.
in disagreement, then you have a lack of communication because you're saying one thing, they're saying another. But when you're negotiating an agreement and you're getting on the same page and it's written down, it's not like a lot of marriages, there's a lot of disagreement in the marriage, and that disagreement creates numerous problems. Often when somebody gets divorced, what is divorce? Divorce is creating a agreement, a boundary around how much money you're going to get, how long are you going to see the kids, when am I going to watch them, and when are you going to watch them. When there's marriage, there's a lot of disagreement in there. We're like, I'm not sure who has it, you have it, I have it. There's a lot of assumptions. Here, there's no assumptions. If you don't have an agreement, the state has an agreement for you, just like a will. If you don't have a will, the state has one for you. So what you're saying, Barry, in terms of communication, the clarity of communication when it comes to ending a marriage that often is ambiguous and you don't even know who's responsible for what, and there's a lot of, often there's abuse and there's all types of things going on. When you have that clarity of communication, it creates more integrity. And that's what integrity is. Integrity is having clarity. When you know exactly how it works, does it work? Does it not work? The more clarity you have, the more agreement you have, the more integrity you have, the more power you have.
This is fabulous. I want to go on something that wonderful Esty mentioned. There's a book that a lot of people recommend to me. I looked at it. I agree certainly with the title because it goes to what you said, Joe. It's called The Four Agreements.
Oh my God, I love that book.
I love that book.
Yeah, so part of the whole structure you just mentioned is that in ambiguous situations, which what marriage is, marriage is very fluid, right? Things happen, things go along like that, but there is, it's really oftentimes very amorphous. And things that are amorphous, it's very hard for you to get your arms around because as you're squeezing over here, it's squishing out over there and down there and such like that. Whereas you're right, what arouses is disagreement. Now, dis is an interesting word. You know, people diss other people. Well, that's really what it's about. You're so correct. The ability sometimes to disagree and come to agreement brings greater clarity. And unfortunately, if good or ill, divorce is such a finality, and yet it's the beginning of a great process of growth. I think Esty would agree that the years she was deeply involved in her religious experience, teaching it, not just living it, teaching it and manifesting that, they were great years. And at some point, and she was devoted, and it was not phony, it was her. But something occurred, we don't have to go into the moment, but a shift began to happen, and she recognizes, wait a minute, the real me is coming out. And part of it, by the way, Esty, I'll say something wonderful about the experience of living and teaching in a certain way, is that it enables you to get to a point where you could literally trust, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this. You couldn't have done it if you didn't have all those years of teaching and emoting. You became more capable. And what Lori does with people in transition, and we can speak a little bit more about her situation because I know, because I've interviewed her and we're friends, she was almost divorced because her husband left. What a horrible thing. And yet, I say this for her, she can obviously speak for herself, it actually caused greater clarity in the marriage. When she went through it, lived it, he returned, the prodigal son, and became a father and a better one and a better husband. But these things are not easy. I mean, we're talking about real pain. But the pain, when one recognizes it and gets to a point, like you said, Joe, so wonderfully, is that what we're looking for with integrity, you need that foundational piece called clarity. Clarity about self, clarity about the other. I want to say something wonderful that Esty mentioned. She speaks well of her husband. Isn't that wonderful? Now, she may not have done it all these past few years. Maybe there was one point for a few months where she either said it to herself or somebody else, something that wasn't as complimentary. But the point is that she went past that because she was in growth mode. Right, Esty? When you're in growth mode, you can't be negative. The genius of the shift of living in integrity for self and divorce with integrity is you can't be negative because that causes defeat. We
I
don't
just
want to
want
be
to say
that
for
way.
the listeners that are married is you don't need to go through a divorce in order to create integrity and agreement in your relationship. You could work with somebody like Lori. You could work with somebody that will help you be able to create that agreement. Divorce often happens when you can't create the agreement within the context of the marriage. So you are forced to create an agreement in the context of divorce. And at that point, maybe if you take the sexual component out of it, you're able to have agreement because now you have less expectations or less things that are problematic in a relationship where you can now just be parents to your kids.
This is wonderful. What an amazing segue. He didn't even realize it, but Joe is very prescient. And by the way, all Lori and Esty are precious people. That goes to the next question that we have. And this one came in. There's over 63 of these questions. I'm going to sum it up very, very simply. Should marriage partners have a coach? In other words, hello, should every marriage, no matter how quotation marks great you think your marriage is, should married people have a coach? So you already voiced something wonderful, Joe, and Lori is a coach, so we'll let her go last. But let's begin with Esty. Esty, do you think that marriage partners should have a coach?
So, disclaimer, I've been a certified professional coach for over 13 years. So I just have to put that out there. This is something I believe in. I have had a business coach all the years of my business. I've graduated from one to the next. I've graduated 2 or 3 by now, right? Different shifts in my business and in my own growth. And I am a big believer in guidance, coaching, consulting, mentorship, therapy. I think a better question is, should every human have a coach? Or get every
I was hoping you'd say that. Okay, good.
Yeah, should every human have a coach? I'll give you some definitions because this is my world. The difference between, let's say, a coach, consultant, mentor, teacher, to me, what a coach is, and the way I see it from my experience and my practice of it for nearly 15 years, is I'm here not to dig into the pain of your past. I acknowledge it, right? I don't dig under the ground. I start at the ground and I take you up. I take you where you want to go. I focus on your future. I focus on who you want to be and what you want to build. And I see who you can be. And I help you get to where you want to go, right? Mentor is typically someone who's been where you want to go or is where you want to go and can kind of just show you the way and let you know what they've done. You want to make sure that kind of person is a really, really, really similar match to where you want to go because they typically can only show you the path they've taken. You want to take the same one, get a mentor who's on that path. Teacher just teaches you things and you're on your own, right? They'll give you knowledge and information, but then you've got to do it. A consultant, I always say, because in my work, I'm a coach and consultant. I know things you don't. Right? I've built hundreds of businesses over the last decade and a half. I'm going to tell you things that you just don't know that I do. And I'm going to recommend you do them because I know stuff you don't know. Right? And these are kind of the differences. But taking it back to what I feel is the foundation of that question, should every human have guidance of some sort in what they want to do and be and become? Why not? Makes it so much easier. Why not?
Mm-hmm. So you're put words in your mouth, but yes, you went to the point of each individual part of the marriage partners should have someone that they work with regularly as a guidance beacon, a coach.
Yeah, I'm very, very growth oriented. It's one of my foundational values. It's part of how I landed where I am, right? Always growing. It's a foundational value for me. For anyone to whom growth is a foundational value, a coach or a guide of some sort really, really helps. If you don't want to grow, right? If you're in like stagnation mindset and you just want to stay exactly where you are, and you know what? I'll give you a great example. My tagline for my consulting company for many years has been more money, less headache. And so
say it again.
Has been more money, less headache. That's how I introduce myself. And right. I've actually had, I think it's only been twice in the last 10 plus years that I've introduced that concept. And I've had people say, well, I don't need more money and I don't mind headaches. I'm like, great. There's nothing to help with. And so if your mindset is, you know what, I like the headaches I have. I just want to sit in this place. I don't want anything to change. I like exactly where I am. A, life is a downward escalator, says Masilas Yesharim, so that's just not how it works, but cool, pretend. And B, cool, don't get someone to help you be better. Just stay exactly where you are, and it's cool. But if you do want to improve something, and maybe you don't have all the tools, or maybe you just want it to be better, faster, easier, I'm a big believer in guidance. It's why I do what I do. So that's why I gave you the disclaimer. I'm biased. This is what I do. It's what I live and breathe every day of my life.
Good. So we will say, we're going to check the column and say, SD Star recommends that every marriage should have a coach, whether they're individuals, maybe even two. Each person in the part, don't look at it as, oh my gosh, I'm falling apart, I need someone. Rather, I want to grow. I want more. I want the best of life. I want to be the best me. So I can have individual. And I think if it's a good coach, I'm saying this, the coach would encourage each marriage partner to speak to each other, to find the
communication helps.
agreements.
Communication helps, but it's the coach in me that says only if you want to grow. Because as a coach,
Right.
I only want to get you where you want to go.
Right.
You don't want to grow, and you don't want a great marriage if it's not great yet, or you don't want a better marriage or a better life or a better relationship or a better business. Cool. I don't have anything
Right.
for you.
And by the way, there are, as you said, there are people who will say, no, I don't want more money. I like my headaches.
Yeah,
Because, hey,
I'm good here.
you know, sloth is part of the human condition.
Exactly.
There's
People
also
are
a
amazing.
distinction. There's also a distinction between coaching and therapy.
Right. I missed that distinction. Thank you. So
Okay.
therapy to me is when you dig inside, right? You go deep into what was, you heal the wounds. As a coach, I'm not healing your wounds. I've had people who asked me to do it. I said, I know how to crack you open, but I don't know how to put you back together. So I won't do it. They're like, no, I could break you open, but I cannot put you back together. So I just won't. But to me, therapy is where you do dig underground. You dig in. And again, each person what they need at their time. I've clocked my 10,000 hours of therapy in my lifetime, probably more. I've done intense therapeutic healing and whatever you want to call it. So I'm familiar with all of it. But to me, that's the difference, right? Coaching takes you from where you are to where you want to go. Therapy takes you from where you are and goes back in the past and says, okay, all these things where you've been and what you've been through, let's heal them. Let's process them. Let's kind of, that underground, that's my visual. Like you're on ground zero. Therapy goes under, cleans it up, fixes it up. Coaching says, okay, we're here. I acknowledge that you're standing on stuff. Where do we want to go?
So, Joe, tell us what you mean by there's a difference between coaching and therapy.
So a coach doesn't fix what's broken. It creates a new breakthrough and a possibility for something magical. That's what I believe a coach does. As opposed to a therapist, they're there to mend what's broken because you can't accept yourself. You can't accept your marriage. You can't accept what's there. So you got to figure out, okay, so what's actually there? And they kind of dig, like Esty said. In terms of a coach, I believe that every athlete needs a coach. Go look at any sports, any major sports. Every athlete needs a coach. Every CEO needs a coach. And a marriage is like a business. If you want it to be successful, you need support. It's not going to be successful on its own. It's going to grow weeds. You're going to have problems. The fact is, the reason why people get married is not logical. The reason why people get married is because a chemical attraction to each other that has to do with your childhood trauma, and it has nothing to do with logic. So if you want to make things make sense so that it actually lasts, a coach would definitely help. You have to find somebody. This is what I tell people when they're not comfortable with coaching or therapy. Then find someone in your life that has a marriage that you want. I'm sure you look around and you see people that are just happy and they're doing what they're doing. Success leaves clues. So find somebody that has a marriage that you want and ask them what they're doing differently than you are. And you might realize maybe they're dating their spouse. Maybe they're having fun. I believe that a marriage needs a vision. A marriage needs agreements. A marriage needs boundaries. A marriage needs values. A marriage needs communication skills that we definitely didn't learn from our parents. Intimacy doesn't just happen. I went to a therapist, and she told me there are 3 R's in marriage that you need to have. You need to have respect, not necessarily believing in what each other believe in, but just respect each other. That's the first R. The second R is repair. Something's broken, something's out of integrity, and you have the ability to repair it. That takes communication, that takes skills, that often takes a coach. And the third thing is the ability to restart from zero. So many people have resentment and they're stuck on what you did, but you did this. I can't live that down. And there's punishment and all types of stuff. If you have respect, if you have the ability to repair what happened, which is forgiveness, and the ability to restart completely from scratch, then you can create the relationship that you want. And if not, you're going to get stuck in the past. And for that, we have therapy.
What's the fourth R?
No, there's 3 R's, I said.
Oh, I thought they said 4.
3 R's, right? Reading, writing, arithmetic. Respect, repair, restart. That was wonderful. Wonderful coach, Lori. Should marriages have a coach? Should people have a coach?
That's what I do all day long, every day. I like to say I work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, literally. The people I coach have my cell phone number, and I do texting with them because sometimes they'll wake up at 2 a.m. and they need me. And I feel, so I've been a coach since 2014, and I became a coach because I needed that when I was going through hell in my life and my marriage, and there was nobody there. And I made a promise with God, and I said, if you help me through this and get my family back together, I will be a source for other people. And so I did it for 3 years until I figured out a way to get accredited and go back to school. And I became a full-fledged certificate coach. So I did it 3 years just for free for people who were like, how did you get your husband home? But that's another story. Coaching for me was the answer that I didn't get in therapy, because I didn't need to go backwards. I didn't need to know about all of our pain and fights and, figuring stuff out. I wanted to grow as a person, and I wanted my husband to grow with me. And I felt he was stuck. So in therapy, if I'm like ready to run and he's like falling behind, we can't be a good team in therapy together. And so therapy failed for us. And just so people understand, I have learned by going to different therapists that just because you go to one and you don't like them, and you go to the next one, you don't like them, and you go to 5 and you don't like them, you're not the problem. It is like finding a mate. You have to keep searching until you find the right one, and that's okay. So I feel we never found the right one. And I wandered this way and he left. And that's when I figured out some things that I was doing way wrong. And I became a better person. I didn't need to go back to childhood pain because I really didn't have any. And I was just stuck in this place. Well, what do I do? And therapy wasn't working for me. And I know now with other people in their marriages, they're just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to talk to him. We're getting divorced and he lives over there. I don't know. So I have come up with, I actually have verbiage that I teach people what to say. It's like swinging a bat. And I help you hit that, hold the bat just right so that you can swing perfectly. So you can get that conversation out of the park and get you what you want and get him what he wants. Because that's what coaching does. It helps people get what they want.
I think that we're helping millions of people right now. People are smiling like Esty and shaking their heads. Wowee. Now, I think a lot of people are going to say to me, okay, give me some verbiage, wonderful coach Lori. But if you want to, we'll do that right now. But I think the analogies that we're all using here, one that mentioned that Joe said, find the model. And by the way, in whatever you're doing, but we're talking about marriage or divorce with integrity, find a model of a person or people that have gone through a very difficult time. As Lori says, she used the 4-letter H word. She went through it. Every person who's been through divorce has been through it. Most people who are in marriages today are in it because they can't see the H word that ends with an N in heaven. It's very difficult to move from the place you are, the third R, restart, without resentment. I think you made an important point here, Joe. Resentment, for good or ill, and most of it ill, is that kind of poison that is the most difficult to, how should we call it, extract out of the being or let go of. resentment is almost built into the human condition. And you really have to do what Esty says, learn how to grow, to be able to find that shift and say, I'm letting go.
I heard a coach once say, resentment is the poison you take, hoping that the other person will die.
Right.
I was just typing that in the chat. Resentment and anger, being in resentment or anger is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Right.
Oh, jinx.
And there's
Yeah.
lots of different types of coaches. I just want to say some people suffer from like intimacy. There are intimacy coaches. There are marriage coaches. There are communication coaches. So finding, like Lori said, finding the right coach for you. If you need a sex coach, go get educated. No one's going to educate you on this stuff. And you're not going to be able to learn it from the internet. You're not going to learn it from the magazines. They're not going to teach you what real intimacy is. They're just trying to get more eyeballs to get you addicted to stuff. So you're not going to learn it from there. So getting someone to actually educate you, getting a coach to give you the skills that you need and support you and the guidance that you need is really, really important. Figuring out where you need the coaching, getting that coaching is going to be a game changer. And some people say coaching is too expensive. Divorce is 10 times more expensive, 100 times more expensive than coaching.
Lori, you wanted to jump in and say something?
Yeah, I want to say something because that's really interesting because I've had clients tell me they're trying to get their husband a therapist, and which I think a lot of times they need because they have childhood pain, which they have to deal with, and a coach can't help them with that. You need therapy. If you have childhood pain or past hurts, that is what Esty said about digging in the ground. You need therapy. And so people will come to me and say, well, what do you think about these therapists? And I've actually reached out to a couple of them and I've looked out, I've done some research to help my clients. And I find therapists who have been married and divorced 5 times and have 3 kids and are currently divorced. And they're thinking their husband's going to go be with this guy. No, don't let him call that guy. So, be aware of who the person that's actually being in your presence to share with you on how you're going to move forward or go backwards and figure things out. Find someone that matches what you want. If your therapist has been divorced or has only been married a year and they're giving you marriage advice,
maybe not for you.
Maybe not for you.
I think this goes to what Esty said about a coach as opposed to a mentor. Not that opposing them, but the mentor has a particular path. The coach says, you see, this is your vision. You want to be here. I can help you get there. I know a lot of stuff. I'm going to help you get there. You want to get in a hot air balloon and go ballooning up, and have breakfast at sunrise with your mate and such like that. You don't know how to do it. I'm going to show you how to do that. I can get you there. That's what coaching does. This is wonderful. So I'm telling you, the questions that we're getting are so wonderful because people are eager to hear. And Joe, spot on again. People start saying, well, yeah, but right away, like this, even though if they're not doing it with their hands, it's expensive. Excuse me, divorce is 10 times more so. And by the way, we're talking about having fun in marriage. F you. Capital N, that's my gig. But people want to have FU in their marriage. It's double N. That's what they really want.
To Lori's point, I believe, and I've heard many people say this also, but I believe that someone can only take you as far as they've gone. And something like Esty said, she graduated from coach to coach because what got you here is not going to get you there. So finding a person that they themselves have gone through it, like Lori, and be able to get their husband to come back and be able to coach countless people through it. That's really the key because, like you said, there's a lot of therapists out there that are marriage therapists that have very unsuccessful marriages over and over and over, and they're still not in a relationship that are thriving for them.
Okay, can I say something on that?
Yeah.
Hold on. So that right there is very important because people get divorced and they think, oh, I'm going to be happy over here. This person is going to make me happy. But happiness comes from inside. So I always tell my people, wherever you go, there you are. So if you think you're going to go to a new marriage and be happy with this person, it won't work. You're going to take all of that stuff with you. So wherever you go, there you are. I think there's a book on it.
I love that.
I just want to add a little disclaimer on that. It's a yes and. Both in my personal experience, in my guidance of my clients, and in my coaches, I've had coaches who are able to guide me past where they've gone, but to a point. And I've guided clients past where I've gone, Some of my clients are far more successful than me with my guidance, and I know it and they know it, and I'm thrilled about it. Can I get them to everywhere? No, not everywhere. I haven't done everything yet. It is possible. So it's within a range, and it's knowing what that person's done and if they're a match for you. I just wanted that disclaimer, because sometimes the right match for you hasn't done exactly what you want them to do. And that's the difference between a mentor and a coach. A coach is a skill. Not every sports coach has been a top sports player, but they know how to coach people to excellence.
Oh, by the way, this is, these points are amazing. I'm going to, just as a funny little thing, a therapist told me this. If you look at the word therapist and you put THE and then you put a dash, it spells what?
The artist?
The rapist.
The rapist.
Right, because they're there for your money or something else. And they can't get. Okay. Hey, wait, I heard it from a therapist. What do you want? I can't tell you.
I'll never see that word the same again.
You're right.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Hey, you know, I love words. I love working with it. So F you, everybody, capital N, capital N. The genius of what you're doing here is so profound because we're really, each one of us, contributing to the benefit of untold thousands of people who are in marriages and they want to be successful in life. Let's be blunt. One of the reasons people get married, I think you said it beautifully, Joe, it's illogical. Okay, there was a physical, chemical attraction. Let's say, you know, oftentimes marriage is defined as lust, and then you move into love. Because you can't love somebody if you don't know them, and you certainly can't love somebody if you don't know yourself. So especially people who are relatively young, meaning under 21 or under 22, especially in today's environment, it is really difficult and it's illogical. Oftentimes people get married because, well, that's what we do. Now, if you think about it too much, you'll never get married because it's so illogical. And that also is not for benefit. Part of the genius of marriage is that it becomes that fertile ground that allows shift to happen individually and not the stuff that's going to be the manure that's going to help something grow. So you want to have, when people enter into marriage, if they actually have agreement before they get married, they actually spoke to each other and talked about values. It still doesn't mean that it's always going to be growing and hunky-dory and laughing, you know, to the wherever they go, because that's not life.
Also, what type of marriage is this? Did you know that in businesses, there are businesses that are lifestyle businesses and there are businesses that are staged for an exit? And if you mix the two, you end up messing it up. If you have a lifestyle business, you're trying to stage for an exit, but you're milking the business, it's not going to work. And if you're staging for an exit and you expect it to be a lifestyle business, it's not going to work either because you're trying to build EBITDA. Same thing in a marriage. There are 4 types of marriages. There's a starter marriage. There's the parenting marriage. There's the personal development marriage. And then there's the soulmate marriage. And often people get married and then they get divorced right away because they were in a starter marriage. Then they got into a parenting marriage. It lasted 15 to 20 years. Then they left that marriage. They went into a personal development marriage. They grew, but then they were just like, all right, we're done. And then finally they find their soulmate marriage where they find the person, once they became who they need to be, they found the person they want to live with the rest of their life with. And that's why so many marriages end in divorce or end in separation, because what is the purpose of the marriage? And if you can't evolve together into a different purpose, then you end the marriage and you start it with somebody else where you can get into another purpose. People get married to have kids. My marriage was a parenting marriage. We had the kids. They grew up, and then what? And so often those marriages will end after a certain period of time if you don't evolve together.
But again, and coming to the close of this remarkable, powerful, positive, purposeful, pleasant hour, it's understanding even that there are such ideas as you just articulated, Joe. In other words, marriage is not just an umbrella anymore. And the genius of life today, more so than 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I can speak like that because I'm 45 years married, so it's almost 50. And I am 73 chronologically, even though I'm only 8 in my sense of wonder in the world. And that's what helps keeps our marriage going and fun and such, is that things today have far more stressors even than people of another time. And there are so many other competing aspects of life that the fun part of marriage can be so much better than anybody ever thought possible. And the other, it's a mirror. So you're right. Find where you want to go. But as I said, we're going to, for the moment, I'm going to say a fond adieu, maybe a chocolate one, a chocolate fondue to everybody out there. It is, for me, it's been wonderful. I am blessed that Lori, you made the time, and Esty, your time and energy, and Joe, your time and energy and insights to contribute to each other because, yes, we're making a difference. Each one of these people is mad. They all make a difference in the world. So we're going to do two things with your permission. We're not just going to say goodbye to everybody like you do and say, okay, bye. We're going to do a big hug and then a quick blessing. Okay, let me tell you what HUG stands for again. HUG stands for heartfelt, unlimited giving. So on the count of three, we'll do a hug and then a blessing. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And our blessing is go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad, go make a difference. We love you. Stay healthy and happy and holy. Woo.
Bye, Barry.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joy of Living podcast. Now that's another step towards your healthier, happier, and wealthier life. Never hesitate to do good in the world, no matter what the situation. Join us for another upbeat discussion next time at barryshore.com. And be sure to leave a rating and subscribe to the show to get more conversations like this. And remember to share it with your family and friends too. See you on the next episode.